Hi, we are live. This is the Conscious Living Show. Hi,
With Mark and Nan.
with Mark and Nan, or Mark and Nancy, or Dr. Mark and Dr. Nancy, or just say hi. So we'll give you guys a few seconds to come in and check in with us. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about something that a lot of things are going crazy in our world, and so today I thought maybe we should amp up the show a little bit and take it in a new direction.
Okay.
What do you think?
Excellent.
Okay. So the direction that I would like to discuss tonight, and I'm sure it'll segue into other things, is what kind of plan do we each have for our own personal healing after the last 4 years, especially this last year, and in particular this last week of really unrest in our world. And so we'll share some of our ideas, but we would love to hear some of yours too. So pop into the chat, the comment section, and send us kind of your ideas about what you would like to see happen.
It's going to be a little more difficult this year because most of the time with an inauguration, everybody's looking for the new changes that are going to occur. Win or lose, you have to be interested in how this is going to affect your family, yourself going forward, and you have to participate in a positive way. It's going to be a little bit more difficult this year.
I think it is. There's a lot of forces against us. So what can we do to take this in a new direction and to keep our sanity and our mental health improving as we move into 2021? I've seen a lot of funny things lately about it's not January 18th, it's December 47th. It's like people are kind of saying, no, but this is still 2020 because we haven't really had that positive transition that we were hoping for 2021.
Well, the new information now is that we're going to have the residual of an impeachment trial, which will be a little bit of a cloud hanging over the newness of the next administration and our government, because they do have a lot of work to do and a lot of challenges, starting first and foremost with the pandemic. It's a little hard for me to know what else they can do. Vaccine's been produced and it's all in play, so now it's really just getting the work done.
So Tina has popped in. She's been a follower of ours for a long time, a great supporter. Hi, Tina. Happy 2021. So Tina, do you have anything that you're thinking about doing as you move forward into 2021 and to heal whatever transitions you've gone through? We'd love to hear from you.
There are antidepressants or insomnia medications,
or a little wine,
wine and alcohol. So cheers.
Cheers.
No, I think we need to go forward with refreshed attitudes, and there needs to be a willingness to reach out to people that we felt embattled by and see what their concerns are.
Yeah.
See where we can share some common ground or find some better solutions. And they're out there. We just have to have an open mind and think about them.
Okay. So how do you handle it then when somebody's ideas are based in mythology and no factual basis whatsoever, but a really skewed perception that's been implanted and they've bought into the belief? How do you cope in a conversation like that?
Well, go back to the reality that they perceive and see how they're threatened by the other world. See what's threatening them. I know for a lot of the more right Republican groups and the Second Amendment, bearing arms, taking away our guns. I think if we could really clarify fairly quickly what we feel responsible gun ownership is, that would go a long ways to diffusing their concerns, irrespective of whether what they believe. It's what can we show them what's the next truth, and try to get this one right. Try not to have it so that it can be so disputed, you know. And gun ownership is a big one.
I find it fascinating. I just saw some footage today, and somebody in Washington last week was saying, you know, hey, you know, calling people that aren't Republican or aren't of his philosophy the anti-Americans and the enemy, that he's saying we're the ones with the guns. We're the only ones with the guns, and I think that people are going to be really surprised to find out all the people that aren't in that mindset or aren't of that belief that still own guns.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in general, it's an American value for gun ownership, for safety, for personal safety, and where are the lines though with this gun ownership? I think that's where we need to talk, not whether we're going to take your guns away or not. We know from a practical standpoint that's not possible. There's millions of them out there.
Right.
People are not going to let this, you know, there's many that were never registered. You never know that they have them. It's not going to happen, and we certainly don't want to remove the guns from people who are honest, nice, kind, gentle people. We don't want just the criminals to have the guns.
Okay.
But there is a level of responsibility that needs to be accounted for with gun ownership, and I think that there's some common ground there. I mean, most gun owners want to are responsible, and they will have a gun safe, and so that their guns are not stole or used in a way that would be unlawful. And so trying to find that common ground. I think going forward, if somebody's got a from your perspective, a bit of a fantasy going, then try to go beyond that and say, okay, well, if that's what you're afraid of, then what can I do to make you not afraid? Because it's the fear that's really scary for everyone. You know, these people that invaded our capital think that they were fighting for the Constitution. They were, I mean, they were very passionate about their beliefs, and that can be a little frightening. So let's find out where the common ground is, and why are they afraid? Why are we afraid? What makes you afraid these days? Yeah.
Them. I mean, you know, I think just like the morning that we sat and watched the planes go into the World Trade Center, it was so surreal to watch that live on TV, and then to wait and see the second plane go through, and all that unfolded about, you know, being our country was under attack. And so a week ago, as we watched this mob of Americans attacking us, I mean, it felt incredibly such a betrayal. You know, that we have Americans that had they wanted to kill other Americans. They really wanted to bring harm. They did bring harm to other Americans, and I really can't wrap my head around that being a patriotic act on any level.
Yeah.
So I think that has been kind of an unnerving sense of. I think it reminded me that there's really no place that's safe, and without these kind of people, because humans can be kind of nuts to begin with. So I've been thinking a lot about, okay, what can I do personally so that I'm okay, and that we're okay, and my family's okay, you know, to kind of bring it back in, because I can't fix the world.
Well, it's an age-old problem. I mean, we try to live by ourselves, and that doesn't work very well.
Right.
As a culture, as a human race, we do much better together. So we have to learn how to get along with each other. It's very counterproductive to have a riot and tear everything apart. It doesn't really serve the purpose. And so going forward, hopefully we can have better understandings of what people are afraid of and what their concerns are.
Yeah.
we need to buckle down and take on the virus and kind of get that out of the political realm. That's I'm hoping that people will meet us halfway there. But there's still a resistance to both vaccination and wearing masks. And I've told a lot of people now in my practice that thank you, love. Choosing to not vaccinate is really going to be choosing to have the infection.
Right.
And I just talked to a person today who's a little discouraged. They tried to go surfing and they just don't have the energy for it. And they're a month or two out from their seemingly benign kind of regular infection. So you're either choosing to get the virus or not. So I don't know how we can move forward as a community to take this on instead of fighting each other and being so stubborn.
Yeah. Well, I've had my first dose of the vaccine. I got my Moderna last week. And so a breeze, really.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the second dose. And I know for us, and you've had both doses of the
Right.
Pfizer. So it's really, and we're in healthcare. I think I'm surprised how many people in healthcare are choosing to wait. How many people so far have had the vaccine?
Well, in healthcare, the medical staff, the doctors are very high in our neighborhood, in our community. It's almost 95%. In the general medical staff, it's 60%.
Wow.
So a lot of work in terms of people trying to use logic, read and understand data, and not just listen to the internet and the conspiracy theories on the internet.
Mainstream media.
And your information sources can make or break you. If you make a bad decision, you are going to be the one responsible for it. So an example would be a lot of people went to the Capitol, broke into the Capitol, thinking that that's what Trump wanted them to do. And they are going, Trump or not, however it happened, they are going to be held responsible for their actions. And turning down the vaccine, you're going to be held responsible, not by the virus, not by anybody else, but for making that choice. And it may work out, it may not. That's the decision that you get to make. And so going forward, I think a little bit turning down the fever a little bit here. We've got to
turn down the heat.
Turn down the heat a little bit and start working together so we can move together. The economy still needs a lot of help. There's still a lot of people out there hurting, and we need to have some compassion that way. People who have money should spend it on things that are important to them. I think voting with your dollars is very fun and very important.
There are so many new jobs that we didn't have a year ago that are being created by creative people, and I've never had trouble getting a job, and it's not because I have super skills. Way before I had education, I could always get a job, partially because I was always willing to do a job, whether it was work in a bank or work in a coffee house or work in home care. I mean, I was always willing to do a job. So I think we have to really open up our minds to be more creative and watch what other people are doing in their creativity. Right now, I have a couple of friends that just are doing some side work with Uber Eats, and they're making $300, $400, $500 a shift, and that's a lot of money. And so if you can look to where people are getting creative and really having more flexibility with their work. Yoga studios definitely suffered from this. I was glad I had sold mine a couple years before. But I think what that's done is it's pushed everybody to go online. I tried to do streaming yoga, 10 years ago?
Too early.
Well, probably 10 years ago. I had a camera in my studio that was aimed at me. My students could be in the studio, but they weren't on camera. And so on Ustream, I streamed all my yoga classes, but it was premature. People weren't ready to do streaming, and now we're all doing yoga streaming. So I think that, to look to see how people are making livings by being creative, and you do have to think outside the box and get over the idea that things are going to go back to the way they were. Just read an article about telemedicine, and that telemedicine's here to stay. There's so many great reasons for that. I think about for your clinics and flu season every year, how many times the waiting room would be packed with people who are all infectious.
We just talked about that. There might not be a day when we go to work at a clinic anymore and not have a mask on. It's going to be the same as 100 years ago when doctors did surgery and they didn't wash their hands
or wear gloves.
And now we think that that's pretty silly that they were doing that. And we'll now probably think that, working in a flu or a coronavirus clinic without a mask probably wasn't a great idea. And so we'll wear a mask. But we're always learning. So far we said, let's moving forward, we want to move forward. We want to turn down the anxiety a little bit. We want to time to make some change happen.
Make shift happen. Yeah.
I think waiting for things to get better or go back to the way that they used to be is a big mistake. I think you need to look and see what opportunities are out there now and move on. Restaurants, with minimum wages going up, restaurants are going to try different tactics. They're going to use a little bit more electronics, and they're going to have fewer jobs serving food. So don't wait for a job to come back. Get creative and move on to something that's opened up. There are a lot of new jobs out there.
I'd love to hear from our listeners what kind of creative jobs you've found yourself doing. You see my cat going crazy back here. Because I'm sure that a lot of you have had to get creative with your work and work from home, teach kids while there's so much that people are trying to do. Mark is an internal medicine doctor, and he has 2 urgent care clinics. So he pretty much does everything.
Well, we're trying to navigate the new healthcare system, and the system keeps putting out more and more roadblocks and more complications. So from that standpoint, I'm kind of support a lot of deregulation of healthcare. Open up the electronic records so that they're not so cumbersome. That right now the certified systems that you're forced to use are not very good, but we are forced to use them because of regulation. And the billing and the documentation, it's all regulated, and so I'm all for some deregulation in healthcare. But we're having to dance right now because our business is down about 30% now, and that leaves us walking the tightrope. We're paying our bills, and that's it. So when it comes time to replace equipment, we won't have the money. So telehealth is coming up, and it's good, but there are problems with that too. I think that telehealth that is local, so that if you need something in addition to the phone call, you need to leave a urine sample, or you need to get a strep test or a COVID test, you can access a lab and get that done. Whereas with the national telehealth systems, it's really just a phone call, and that's all that they can provide. So there'll be some thinning out and some refining of telehealth medicine. And so we're having to dance, and everybody really needs to get on the floor and with a very positive attitude, start dancing. That money that you're getting from the government is to help you start dancing. It gives you just a little bit of slack so that maybe you can do something different, and you need some equipment or be creative, and go from there.
What about health? I know yesterday one of my granddaughters and I went for a walk on our river trail. So getting outside and just being in nature, even with a mask, did feel more normalizing. And so I think that, for me, getting outside or going and doing something that feels relatively normal, even if it's with some modification, is part of my healing path to feeling better about my days. And
I think that's there have been silver linings.
Yeah.
We walked outside in April and looked at the sky and said, it looks a lot bluer, with less people driving and less smog in the air. There was almost an immediate benefit, and the world seemed quieter and calmer. Of course, that was a little bit of a facade, but there still were some benefits, and I think people, you can't buy a motorhome now, and people are traveling more locally, so we're flying less. Airplanes are not good for the CO2 problem in our environment. So needing to go so far for your pleasure and enjoyment is really difficult. I mean, a lot of my pleasure's right here.
I was gonna say, more sex for you and me, right?
Oh, sex, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think making play dates with your partner and doing that in the house. Yes, that's the cat was meowing. She's in heat. She's about 6 or 7 months old, and now she's having her heats, and so she's driving us crazy during these few days a month. Seems like she's always in heat, though. Speaking of it being in heat,
Speaking.
That was a segue. Just to making play dates and finding time to do things with people that are in your pod, and being creative that way. I mean, and like you said, they're really, it seems like with COVID, it's closing in on our families and our communities and our units, and we have to get real that with the way this thing is spreading and the amount of people that are being irresponsible about themselves, we either are going to get COVID or we're going to get the vaccine. And so as soon as I could get the vaccine, I jumped on it. I didn't wait. Because I don't want to get COVID. I don't know how I would get it. I don't know. I can't say I would get an easy case. I don't have any underlying conditions, but that doesn't seem to matter. So I think we want to be mindful about, choosing our path, so that we can enjoy the other side of this experience, this time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want to be safe, you want to have fun. I think it has really thrust us out into some new areas, and we just have to embrace those and see where they take us. Like I say, people are touring around the United States a lot more than they did before. And
that's true.
And that's a good way to spend your money so that it helps somebody else. That's how money works. I call them votes. It's probably your biggest vote, more so than for the president. I know that everybody's pretty nervous about this change, and or at least half the country's nervous about it. But reality is it probably won't make too big of a difference.
I'm hoping it does.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay. It needs to make a difference. So Tina's asking about being on your friends list on social media. Well, first of all, Tina, Mark doesn't do social media. He has an account that I use as a backup when I'm in trouble. So he's not really a social media guy. He lets me do all that.
I do feel like I miss out on some of the important conversations, and even though it's only one little, you type a sentence and it goes off into oblivion. That it is the mass of typing that really makes a difference in our world now. It is important to exchange ideas and move forward. I'm hoping, for example, I see great efforts on the basis of some of our companies. Apple just announced a $100 million plan to improve education in some of our cities that are struggling, and it's a great program, and it's an example of how these companies, which have great resources, can really make a difference.
Yeah.
It's a fallacy, and a lot of our politicians don't understand that stock ownership and the number of shares times how much they're worth and your net worth is pretty meaningless in terms of moving forward with our country. Because if we wanted to sell $10 billion of Tim Apple's stock,
Tim
Apple's stock, somebody else has to take $10 billion and pay it in. So there's no new money that comes out of that. It's really just spent one time. I think that the money is really in the power of the company itself, and empowering some of these companies to do more might be as important as empowering some of the educational institutions. A lot of our educational institutions get a lot of money from our federal government, loans and such, and via tuitions that are kind of astronomical because people can borrow and all of that. And these companies are stepping up, and I hope we don't wound the companies out of anger that they are rich, and that we allow Apple and Microsoft and Tesla to continue to innovate and to move us forward. Now there probably are some anti-competitive issues that need to be addressed, but hey, let's get more people trained.
So Tina wants to know how we are, and she's hoping that this new year will be awesome for us.
I'm optimistic. I think I'm trying to. I have to say, it kept stuttering a little bit. I kept saying, okay, we'll get past the election, then we'll get past the court cases, then we'll get past, because we were distressed. We do feel that you need to have a kind and gentle heart moving forward, and you can't always be antagonistic and ornery and angry and lying. Those just aren't our values. So it was very difficult for us, but we kept having false starts.
Yeah.
So now we're hoping that the 20th,
Wednesday,
which is the Wednesday, will be a time when we can take a deep breath, exhale, and focus more on what we're worried about and what we want to do than what's going on in our country. That's been a big distraction for a lot of us. And now that the distractions will be gone, time to get busy.
I'm hoping you're right.
Yeah, no, I think it will be.
Okay. Well, and am I gonna? I can't hold you to that.
Sure you can.
You can?
Yeah.
All right.
I've been telling you all along.
Yeah, I know. 4 years you've been telling me.
Well, I mean, I kept you from needing to move to another country.
Well,
although we are going temporarily to Jamaica.
Yeah, we might not come back. Depends on how things go here.
Where you go will be where you find yourself.
Everywhere you go, there you are.
There you are. Right. You're going to find new problems in new situations. True. And
that's true. That's why we're still here.
This country has to be more than just any one president. I mean, you have the best president in the world. 8 years are gone. We got to move on.
Right.
This time I think we'll have a little less angst, but we are going to have a different party, and then they're going to have different priorities. So we're going to have to see how those mesh with everybody else. Hopefully we can, do better. I don't know.
This show is called The Conscious Living Show, and you coined that term when we were trying to decide for you. When you told me what the kind of yoga I was teaching was conscious living yoga, and then we created The Conscious Living Show. When you say conscious living, what's conjured up for you? What is there a feeling? Is there a thought? Is there what is the stream of consciousness around just saying conscious living?
Well, I think there's a pause, and then logic, and then movement in a positive direction, and it has to be conscious. And if you pause so that you can kind of get rid of the distractions, and then you use your logic, you'll be more comfortable and more confident in moving in a more decisive way. Being wish-washy, it just doesn't work out very well. You have to be decisive. You're going to make mistakes. It doesn't mean that if you're conscious, you're not going to make mistakes, but you're not going to be misled.
Right.
You're going to know, oh, this could go wrong for me, but
you'll know your risks.
You'll know your risks.
Yeah.
And you move forward, and that's a real comfortable way for me to move through the world.
That's kind of the conversation I've been having with a lot of people lately around the vaccine. They'll say, "Oh, I'm not going to get it yet," and I say, "Well, I'm curious. What is your reasoning for that?" And they say, I just am going to watch it for a while." And I said, "Well, how many people need to get it and safely for you to feel good? Do you have a number? Because I said, it's about 7 million people right now so far have had it, right?"
Yeah, it's millions.
So it's not 10,000. It's millions of people that have had the vaccine, and that there's been nobody died from it. Nobody's gotten COVID from it. A few people have had an allergic reaction, but that's expected with anything, even going to a seafood restaurant. So what are you waiting for? What do you need to feel comfortable? And they literally don't know. And I say, so why don't you be proactive then and look at the data, start to look at the research, listen to the scientists. Don't listen to mainstream media, but go listen to the scientists, the ones that have been working on this and other vaccines and other scientific processes for years, who can explain it in a way that we can understand it. Because there's some really great scientists out there doing this work. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, that the woman that came up with this concept, one of the parts of it is an African American woman. And she was shocked. She's like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." So this isn't a partisan vaccine. This isn't Trump's vaccine. This is a vaccine that was created in Germany and part in Israel and part here. I mean, it's a group effort of scientists that then Pfizer and Moderna and other companies have gathered to create this. So
it's a culmination of a lot of science over the last 20 or 30 years. What's surprising to me in terms of conscious living is that people, vaccines have been available for some time so there's disease models that have been very effective for vaccines. Smallpox is gone, and measles is almost gone, and all of these different viral infections, which have been scourges, have been
eradicated.
Have been conquered. Tetanus, all by vaccines. So we have these very strong models for vaccine. So now we have a coronavirus vaccine, and those shortcuts were taken. What they did is they sped it up by doing it simultaneously. So they took more risk. They started to manufacture vaccine before they knew whether it was going to be any good or not. Normally, a company would not start manufacturing until it is proven to be good. But they started, and so now that it's been proven to be good, they have a head start, having produced more vaccines.
Well, and the other reason that they were able to move through this more quickly was they had the funding, all of the funding right from the start.
Right.
They didn't have to do one piece of it and then wait for funding to do the next piece.
That took a lot of risk.
Right. Okay, go ahead.
But what's surprising to me is that a person, if a person's afraid to move forward with any logic on coronavirus and just simply says, "Listen, I'll be very careful. I'll wait for herd immunity. Maybe I'll never get it," and that's their plan. Okay, that's a strategy. Not a great. Likely, only 10% of people will that work in. The other 90% will fail and get it, or get the vaccine. But what astounds me is that people will hear on the internet that ivermectin, which is a medication that paralyzes parasites. It's an antibiotic in the sense that it kills parasites that we get in our body, and it paralyzes them so that they can't eat. And the science behind that is totally different than anything that we would apply towards trying to control a virus. And yet there's some people out there advocating the use of ivermectin because in a test tube it seems to inactivate the virus. We went, if you listen to the internet, you went through the hydroxychloroquine, and that medicine has potential side effects. And we have a whole slew of people out there already on it, people with rheumatologic conditions, and it would have become fairly obvious pretty quickly that those people weren't getting coronavirus. But I never saw any data that supported that, and yet many, many, many people took hydroxychloroquine at significant risk.
Unknown, yeah.
With unknown benefit.
Yeah.
I can't even connect the dots on that. So that's where, when I talk about conscious living, you have to, it doesn't have to make it that hard. Just try to connect the dots and say, okay, vaccines work in general. This is a vaccine. This might help. Hydroxychloroquine is for lupus. It has no way how we would figure out that it would be an antiviral. That doesn't mean it wouldn't work, but boy, when I don't understand the mechanism, how it's going to work, it's hard for me to really be that enthusiastic about it. I mean, they have done brute force experiments, and they're quite funny, where they took military recruits and they put every chemical that they could put on their hands and arms, and then they put their hands inside this nest of mosquitoes, and if they got 100 bites, they said, okay, that one didn't work, and then they moved on to the next one, and they tested several hundred or maybe 1,000 different compounds, and finally came out with our current anti-mosquito medication. So you can brute force it with no logic at all, but it seems to me that it's that more we move forward better by making little incremental steps rather than trying to leap or just do it by brute force.
I think you need to do some videos on how to decipher data. I think the most average person who isn't a doctor, who isn't a scientist, when they look at a data, if they go to the CDC and they look at data, they don't know how to work through it and even what to look for. So I think there needs to be some, and then so people get most of their information from mainstream media, which is really not based in science.
But trust is a difficult thing, and to be honest with you, I don't know how to navigate that. Our politicians have taken shots on. Fauci's gotten a shot on YouTube, and I was first to get one of our shots at our clinic, and so that showing my employees that I didn't turn green or fall over, and
your arm didn't come off.
And even with that information, it still won't conquer their distrust of what is a vaccine. That's it's just a sad note. I don't know how it's going to play out, but eventually we are going to relax restrictions, and as we do, the virus will find the people who are not resistant to it, and that's just how medical illnesses work. We had a question about Hito.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, they've been open actually since July, and with very careful restrictions. They've adjusted them a few times, and now it's really strict, which is great because they've had no outbreaks either at the resort or after the resort. So anybody coming into Jamaica has to have a test, a negative test to prove to get on the plane. Once you get to Hito, or once you get to the airport, they're testing people again. And then when you get to the resort, now to come back to the States within 1 to 3 days of returning home, you have to have a negative test. Yeah. So
and all of that testing is good, but it's still not really a strong guarantee.
Not a guarantee, no, but you're not allowing like wildly infected people into your place.
Right.
So,
but I think it's it's on the cusp of restarting, and this is a great place to. I mean, it's one of many places where you can go and pause because you kind of isolate within a small community.
Yeah.
And then you kind of strip off all the layers of all of the what would you say?
Clothing.
Well, all your burdens kind of leave. You don't have a schedule. You don't have all of the things that are weighting you down go away, so that you can think more consciously about where and what is next for you, and how you're going to move forward. I think it's a great way to spend a week or two.
Yep.
And like I say, you can go to a desert island. You want to go to grass hutch over the ocean, and
the Maldives. And
the difference with Hito and all those other places is they might provide that kind of experience. We've been to Hito; it definitely provides that kind of experience.
Right.
So now, see, if you trust us, then you would say, that might be worth, rather than just picking a spot, this is maybe a little bit more likely to meet those needs.
Yeah.
And on the same vein, go get your vaccine, because now I feel a little bit safer.
Definitely.
Going to Hito.
Yeah.
I've been vaccinated. Until there's a mutant that makes it not work, we're in good shape.
Yeah. So we are going back to in February to teach our couples Valentine's week, the Kama Sutra Intimacy Oasis. And so we're very excited. We will be arriving in Jamaica on February 13th. And we've got some friends that are going to be there. Carol and David from The Sexy Lifestyle. They're actually there now, and they're spending 69 days at Hedonism. So we'll see. We'll get to see what it's like to actually live there for 9 weeks or whatever.
They might have a little dissociation and a problem with reality.
I think they're going to have to go through a re-entry program to go back to Canada where it's cold.
We always get in trouble because we go to a restaurant when you could go to restaurants and walk out without paying and go, forget that you have to pay. But
right.
It's a great place to do some self-exploration or to work on your relationship with Nancy's Oasis, where you learn communication skills so that you build trust. It's all about trust.
It is.
We had a yogi, Mukunda, our teacher. What was his name?
It's all about relationships.
It's all about relationships, and
that's the only real important thing in life.
It starts with yourself,
mm-hmm.
then your partner, your family, your community,
mm-hmm.
your country. And it keeps life exciting.
Very.
Yep. You excited? I'm excited moving forward. I think we have to have some optimism now that change is going to be good. There'll be some things we don't like and some things that we're ecstatic about. And let's be optimistic and get rid of this militaristic kind of anger. That isn't going to solve a problem.
They need to get laid.
Yeah.
I mean, that really, because there's so many men that are in these groups now, these militaristic groups that have adopted this idea of no self-pleasuring. And so they withhold pleasure from themselves. They're angry, they're frustrated, and you can just see it. I mean, you can see it in their faces. They're just looking for an outlet for their violence, when really they just need to have some really good sex, even if it's with themselves. So, I'm a great advocate of some great sex will go a long way in piecing out the world. The bonobos, the primates that are the closest to humans, that's how they solve all of their conflict. If you've never studied a primate culture, look up the bonobos, and it's pretty fascinating. And the females rule, and the females resolve the males' angst and anger with sex.
So through all of my...
So you get feeling angry?
With my pathway, my pauses and my logic and my conscious living, I found a partner that solves all problems with sex. So,
lucky you.
Life is pretty good. All I have to do is create a small problem.
Just act a little bitchy.
Which for men, it's
really easy.
It's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
I was shouting down the hallway a few times, and she was getting pretty frustrated because she can't hear what I'm saying, and she gives all kinds of excuses for why it makes her mad, but worked out.
Is that why you were doing that stuff?
Well, you just don't realize how many times you shout down the hall with me.
No, I don't.
I know.
But thanks for pointing that out.
I'm trying to stir you up again.
So, Tina, where can you find one what? A bonobo?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can just sit here and chit chat forever. So anyway, so as we move forward into 2021 and we get past this next little milestone, this little hurdle, think about what it is you're doing or you would like to do or you've seen other people do that seems to be working, positive reinforcements or some uplifting direction of healing to heal whatever experiences we've had in this last 4 years.
Pause and take some time to understand where your angst is and take some time to talk to some people, listen, and see where their angst is and see if there's some common ground. Not trying to explain to them why they're wrong, but moving forward, what will work out best for everyone. That's really what is the most important. And go from there.
So Tina wants to find a partner that she just has to keep quiet with sex.
There's got to be some people
I'm sure,
out there.
If you're going to do a dating profile, that would probably be something to put on there. Yeah, if you get too noisy, I'm just going to boink you into silence. You probably get some takers.
Yeah, I mean, you talk a lot, but after sex, sometimes you can't say a word.
I kind of don't make sense. That's your fault.
Yeah.
All right, we're giving too much away here.
Yeah, okie doke.
All right, so
be positive.
So remember, every day when you wake up, you get to decide you're either a warning or you're an example. You are certainly my example.
Ditto, love.
I hope so. Sometimes I feel more like a warning.
All right. Good night.
Yeah,
good night, Tina.
Good night, Tina. Thanks for everybody for checking in.
Yep.
And we'll be back next week, same time, same station.
All right.
Namaste.
Namaste.